In an airliner, it's a little bit different because you're higher. So you can see a lot more and get some situational awareness. You have some context clues, and it helps you kind of refine your position. But like in a little airplane, even in the Lear that I fly, you sit so low, you don't have that big field of vision where you can start drawing in more information and really have a good idea where you are. And we brief the taxi route, but I always say, okay, it's going to be left turn Bravo 1, Bravo Alpha 1 to the ramp, or we'll just do what they tell us because you don't know where you're going to stop the airplane
Right.
because I'm not just flying out there by myself. So if I touch down and I float, because I'm trying to do a good landing. So I try to do a good landing. Well, I float 500 feet past the fixed distance markers. And then I get gently on the brakes, gently on the thrust reversers, and I eat up 1,000 more feet than I think. Well, now I'm at a different taxiway. Well, now, like, my brief is pretty much out the window if the first taxiway I'm turning off at is not the one that I briefed. So it kind of can be, it's really subjective. And day by day, you could have landed at that airport earlier in the day, same airport earlier in the day. That doesn't mean you're turning off the same taxiway. They turn the airport around. You land on a completely different piece of pavement. There's a bunch of reasons why there can be some ambiguity in the briefing because we rely so much on briefings to plan. But if you
Yeah.
don't know the first step in your plan, the rest of it is on a very shaky foundation. Is it a left turn or a right turn? That's the easiest one. If I go past the taxiway that I brief, it's no longer a right hand turnoff or a right. Once I make my left turn, let's say for the example that I'm thinking of, it's a left hand turn off the runway. But my previous example that I briefed, it would have been a right turn to the FBO. If I go past that turn off the runway and get the next one, it's a left hand turn off or a left hand onto the parallel taxiway, whatever. Left or right turn. That's kind of a big difference when you're starting to talk about taxi instructions.
For sure. And
It's
I actually
that simple
remember
thing.
you saying, I think I learned this from you, that when you land at a big airport and it takes them a second to get to you, but like, don't stop. Don't ever stop. Just keep going. Go very
Right.
slowly.
Right.
Wait till they get to you. They'll tell you what to do.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And have you had in like your other exposure to other instructors, has that seemed to be kind of the general consensus or am I like out there in left field on that one? Has anybody ever said
So,
that?
I have definitely been told to stop. You get off the runway, you pass the hold short lines, and you stop. And you
Yeah.
wait to hear what you're going to do. Are you making a left on the taxiway? Are you making a right on the taxiway? Like, what do they want to do? You know?
Right.
But I
Right.
think when you were speaking about it, you were talking about like a very large airport. And
JFK.
yeah, and you can't afford to be in a bigger jet than, let's say, me. Like, it takes a little bit to get a Cessna going or a Piper going, right? You got to increase the throttle. You have to push it a little bit. I can imagine all of that inertia in a bigger plane takes a long time. And at that point, you're a
And
risk,
a lot of
right? You're
gallons.
dangerous.
A lot of
Right.
gallons too, if we're being tree huggers.
Right. So at
If
that
you want to think
point,
about
you're
that, yeah.
dangerous,
It's more
you
about
know?
saving money for the company.
That too. But it's all about ecology. We're trying to save the planet, not the company.
Actually, I would prefer if it's a little warmer out
Scott's
here
more of a
most of the time.
company man. Anyway,
You know?
Tyler's back in the chat. All right. Oh, there's somebody in the chat.
So
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
So yeah, so we're talking about the taxi. The aim would tell you, yeah, stop afterwards, wait for you, because you're a clearance limit, right? You're cleared to land. You're not cleared to taxi to the FBO.
Correct.
So, and I get all of that too, but don't do that at O'Hare. Don't do that at JFK.
Hmm.
That's just the way it is. So I've never been yelled at. I've never been yelled at for taxi instructions,
For
you've been yelled at a
stopping, you
lot.
mean?
and I've been yelled at a lot. What's that?
For stopping? Have you stopped ever?
No, I've never stopped.
That's why you haven't been yelled at.
Exactly. That's my point. The aim says one thing, but the controller will basically thank you by not yelling at you because you know where you're going, and I'm not saying go 30 knots down the taxiway and cause other trouble. If you don't stop anybody else from going where they're going, you need to be on ground frequency. And this is something that upsets me. We'll be up at cruise. I like listening to what's going on around me. Like
It's
I can't
situational awareness. I feel like we should define that too. So finish saying what you're saying and then we'll talk about it.
that can be it. I like listening to what's going on around me, so I can build basically the environment around me. I can form a composite image in my brain, what's going on around me, so I have all the elements that would normally, just looking out the window, I might not be able to see, but through what ATC is saying to other people, I can start to again build a composite image of the world around me when I would otherwise not have all those details. Basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's basically essentially what situational awareness is. Like by definition, there's 3 levels to situational awareness, and you mentioned them. The first one is like taking in the elements of your environment, like you said, listening and sort of understanding what's going on at the airport. And then you have to, those are 2 of them. So listening and then understanding, putting them into context. And then the third one is understanding what the implication of those elements are and what it means for you and your environment, right? Like if you're listening to something and you say, okay, I know that there's another plane over here. What does it mean for me? Will I be allowed to turn? Like projecting into the future so you're always a step ahead of the airplane, whether you're on the ground or you're in the sky or wherever you are, you're always staying a step ahead. So that's essentially what situational awareness is. So it's important that you have all 3 of those elements.
Absolutely. So when that comes into play, I mean, I know we've derailed. That's what we do here, I guess. I know that it's not in the AIM and it's not FAA approved, and I could get violated for it theoretically. But it served me so well. If you don't cause a headache for ATC, and when you're in flight, you're a lot less sure of the things you may do, the way you may manipulate the airplane. You can't project those things out, what that headache that may cause for an air traffic controller. On the ground, it is much easier, especially when I'm talking about going from the runway, from a critical surface to non-critical, crossing that whole short line. That's the way I describe it to students. You're going from a critical to non-critical.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you're getting further away from headaches for ATC. And so I feel like, yes, I know there are rules in conduct, and I get all that. But if I'm much more in tune because everybody drives a car. It's just like that. If you don't cause a headache and you go blazing through a 4-way stop, you're likely not going to get in trouble. So don't break the speed limit. I'm using driving terms for an airplane. Don't just use common sense, and you're not going to get yelled at. But you don't want to stop because there's an airplane right behind you that's about to use the same turnoff that you just did. You don't want to stop there.
Obviously, unless you're about to enter another critical area.
Unless you're about to enter another critical area too.
Then just go really fast.
And then just go through it as fast as you can.
Look both ways and cross.
Yep.
Bad idea.
That is a bad idea. Yes.
Well, if there's nothing coming, who cares?
I had a point,
it's
and
always
Scott may
squawk.
forgot it.
What's the squawk code for radio failure?
I don't know. What is it,
What is
Scott?
it?
So I just want to add the caveat. This is
Squawk that, and then just do what you want.
when Lee
Squawk
was
what,
telling that
Scott?
story. It was because
One of the 7.
Which one?
numbers.
Which one?
70.
great.
70. 7600.
Yeah, look at
Is
you.
that right?
I'm
Oh.
so impressed.
Yeah, I'm smart.
The
So smart.
ground was too busy. You would talk to ground if you were able to,
Mm-hmm.
but you couldn't get a word in.
But I should have stopped, though.
Technically, according to the AIM,
according to the AIM.
which, as Mr. Boris always points out, is
Well, the
more,
aim is a suggestion.
yeah,
Book.
more of a
Books are
suggestion.
full of
book.
suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I made it at JFK.
They're like yellow signs. You
Right,
don't really
exactly.
have to follow them. They're
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
suggestions.
Yeah. I made the turn off and then taxied all the way to the ramp.
Yeah, because you couldn't get a hold of the ground at that point.
They were probably okay with what you were doing. So
100%. They don't
Fine.
want.
100.
No matter what I would have done, I would have been a nuisance to them. So the one time, another time at JFK, this is why, because it's one of the bigger airports that we go to semi-frequently. I have these examples. We turn off, we landed one of the 3-1s, or a 1-3,
3-1.
no, 1-3 left. We landed to the southeast. So we landed 1-3 left, and he goes, hey, so-and-so, are you familiar? I'm like, yeah, what do you want us to do? Taxi this, this, and this? He goes, as requested. That's it. Done. That's all the talking I did. And so, because I was just there like a week ago. So, I know what he wants me to do. And you show competency. Don't be an idiot. Use common sense. And you're not going to get yelled at.
Scott and I don't have any of that though, so we're just
No, yeah.
guaranteed to get
In
yelled
real
at.
life, I don't.
Well,
Either way.
First off, you tell them you're a student. Doesn't matter how long you've been flying. Doesn't matter if you're flying a Lear. Tell them you're a student. Then they'll go slow with you.
But JFK is not. I had like anxiety the first time I went in there. It's like, oh, the
Yeah.
biggest airport in the country, and they're chill. They can be busy, but their busy is still the way they handle it is so much better than other very busy airports.
Yeah.
I will say absolutely.
What's the worst one to fly into?
Well, Chicago is like that would still give me some anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't Atlanta still the busiest?
I've never had trouble at Atlanta.
No.
I've never had trouble at Atlanta. I've only been in there like 4 or 5 times, but
Yeah.
I've never had trouble. But yeah, Chicago has at least that is the most anxiety-inducing one to me.
Chicago.
Yep.
You ever landed at LaGuardia?
Yeah, I used to go into LaGuardia a lot. I love
Being-
LaGuardia.
I was just going to say, being a passenger in LaGuardia is anxiety invoking. Like, it's always a delay. It's always a thing. Like,
Yeah.
every time I listen to live ATC, it's a mess.
Yeah. They have no real estate to work with. And that's one of the things with JFK. They have a ton of real estate. They can in O'Hare. They can put you on different taxiways and do different things to create separation and create a flow. That's the whole thing. JFK, Chicago, they want a constant flow of traffic. They don't care if you're taxiing for 30 minutes or 45 minutes straight. You never stop moving for 45 minutes. They don't care. They don't want you to hold up somebody else. So they're all in the same program, but some of the, like Charlotte's the same way. But you get to DCA, you get to LaGuardia, they don't have any real estate to play with. If you make a wrong turn, they can't say, "Oh, go left here instead of right," and then we'll kind of get you back in the flow, and then you don't slow anybody down. You create a bottleneck. They have
Right.
less runways, they have less ramp space, all those sorts of things, and that can be really obviously a headache for them. And those are some of the best control. LaGuardia, Philly, and DCA, I think, are some of the best controllers in a terminal environment. I think the best controllers for like center, like in route control, I would say is like South Florida, the Jacksonville, Miami center. Well, I guess Jacksonville isn't, but the Florida controllers. The state's only this wide. They got to get everybody in and everybody out, and
Is
there's
that it?
thunderstorms in the middle.
Everybody's
It's
going
only
north-south.
It's really
Yeah.
only like 4 foot.
It's only like 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
I know it looks a lot bigger
Yeah.
when you look at it on a Rand McNally.
So
but
why
it's
my
really only
property
4
wasn't
feet.
wide enough for the pad.
Oh, okay. That's right.
'cause
Yeah.
That's it.
Like,
That's
that's
it.
why I have no help.
Shouldn't have bought it.
Yeah.
I know.
Those estimates, man, on Zillow, they're real. But so I think it's the real estate issue for LaGuardia why it's such a headache for everybody involved.
Makes sense.
But where that place is, I mean,
You should just never go to
geological-
New York City for any reason at all.
That.
You want to talk about it? You want to talk about it?
I went
Or-
there, I went
or
there for
New
dinner
Jersey,
once.
for that
I went there
matter.
once. From New
Stay-
Jersey.
Stay out of any of those states.
I had to